Hey, Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Amanda. Great to see you again.
Well, as I was just saying real quick, before Ben and I came on and started recording, I just told him that I wanted to have him come on and shoot the shit with me. And we're just going to talk about all this craziness that's going on, with everybody being furloughed and sequestered at home. And I was just thinking how great of a time this really could be, despite the anxiety and the fear and the chaos. Um, what a great time this is to reconnect with our families, really develop a relationship with our homes that I think many have lost, and of course, nature. Right, Ben?
Right. Yeah. This is a great time of anxiety and fear. This is, of course, my interpretation, but I'm trying to spin that as well to a wonderful opportunity to be closer to home, closer to nature as well. Opportunity to get outdoors. I mean, this is happening in springtime. It's like the time where everything wakes up and comes alive. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to slow down is the way
And
I'm
such a
trying to see it.
beautiful time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm literally looking out my window and like all of the trees are starting to emerge and bloom. And like, what a thing to be grateful for that. What if we were sequestered at home in the middle of November?
Right. Yeah. That's where I'm seeing the silver lining in this is, yeah, if it was just the onset
Perfect
of
timing.
winter, and it's so much tougher in winter, there's so much beauty at the same time. But it's so much tougher to feel alive when you're outside. At
Yeah.
least that for me.
Well, and I think that you really hit the nail on the head by, it's so funny. I'm literally looking out my window and there's three cardinals like playing on the trees out there. But there is a silver lining to all this. And I think a lot of people are focusing on some of the negative things of I'm stuck at home and I can't get outside and my family's driving me nuts. And I feel like I'm crawling on the roof because I'm so stir crazy. And honestly, as an introvert, I can't relate to that. Like, I love being home. I love being by myself. I can putter till my heart's content, which I love. I feel like the planet has like written me a permission slip to do all the shit that I love to do, as far as going out in nature and writing and doing shows like this. And like, I feel like I've been written, this slip of here you go, do everything that you love to do. And we're giving you permission.
Yeah, it's great. I feel both ways. It's as a I'm a borderline IE, so I have some extrovert tendencies and some introvert tendencies, and this is certainly a time where all those little bits, just being able to be by yourself, if that's an opportunity right now, it's great. For those extroverts too, sometimes you're stuck being with a ton of other people too, and that's certainly the case in our house right now with three little kids running around, and it gets a little claustrophobic at times, but at the same time, it's a great space for just us to spend time together, to recharge and to not be thinking about driving this place and that place and running all these errands. So it's really great. Yeah.
And I think that's really what this is about, is it's a reminder of how we can connect with our families. We've really given ourselves so much space. I was really starting to see that, having gone into real estate. And one of the things that I kept saying is, how much bigger are these houses going to get? Like, the average home here in Williamson County was averaging 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, who needs to live in this? Like, back in the day, a family of 4 or 5 would live in 1,200 square feet. And now it's like, how much space can we put in between us? And from a
Right.
feng shui standpoint, that's really bad feng shui, because it really blows up the intimacy, and we have lost a connection. And then, of course, we're always on our devices. So that furthers us from connecting. So I feel like we have been kind of forced to go home, so to speak. So what have been some things that you've been doing? I think that it's great that, there's probably a lot of people that are watching this and listening to this that have kids, and they're probably
Right.
like, oh my God, like, I can't relate. I'm sitting over here going, oh my God, this is amazing and glorious. And I don't have kids at home. So how are you managing with keeping them entertained and keeping them happy? Because they probably don't understand any of this.
Right. Yeah. So just for context, I have three little boys. One just about to turn 7, so he's having his 7th birthday on Monday, this coming week. And so we had to cope with the idea that his birthday party was canceled, and all of our wonderful plans. We usually have a family tradition of going out to a restaurant of their choice on their birthday, so we can't do that. Um,
Oh.
and so, yeah, so there's some difficult things we've had to deal with. And so we have our 7-year old, and then a 4.5 year old, and a 2.5 year old. And so life's pretty crazy. A lot of high energy, little kids running around. Uh, it's tough to find quiet space. And so if we get through this whole interview without a burst through the door, we're lucky. I think right now we have a beautiful day right now, so they're outside, even though it's a little muddy. They're outside running around like crazy hooligans right now, so we might be lucky here. But yeah, I guess some of the things we've done, I wouldn't say we're successful by any means, but some of the things we've tried to do um, is, again, I'm really thankful for the warmer weather because we've tried to get them outside more and more. And so luckily we have a little bit of space. We have about just under a half acre of property. And so a good chunk of that is our backyard, where we feel a lot safer just kind of sending them out back. Even our 2.5 year old, we're starting to just let go a little bit and let him be himself and be out and free with his big brothers and to feel like a big kid. Um, and so letting him outside to have just free play and free time has been really nice. It's not always a perfect thing. Sometimes it lasts 2.5 minutes. Sometimes it lasts 5. Sometimes it lasts 45. And so that's one of the activities. We also built, we rigged up our living room to make it a fort building mecca for little kids. So
Woo!
we inserted some eye bolts. This is probably a horrible, horrible interior design recommendation, but we put some eye bolts into the studs around the room, and the intent is to turn them into little hanging planters to make it look a little bit nicer. But right now they're just eye bolts, and so they can strap ropes onto them and hang blankets, and so our living room becomes a blanket fort a couple times a week. So yeah, we're just trying to do as many of those little activities, a lot of the kind of the old school stuff, what kids
Yeah.
used to do.
The busy
um,
boards.
yeah. Right. And so even just involving them in some of the house chores, it's tougher for us because we're trying to get stuff done. I'm with my full-time job, I'm working from home right now, so it's tough for them to know that they can't just barge in on daddy
Well, you're
and
home.
whenever they want. Right, exactly. So it's hard for them to mentally break out that I'm working, which is a tough frustration that I think a lot of people are probably dealing with. So there's some difficulty, but in between, yeah, I'd say the outside thing, and us as parents trying to let go a little bit and just um, let them have time and space because that's what they want. And then also to have some attention here and there too has been, I guess, the overarching themes that we've been trying to embrace to help make this time a little easier for us.
I'm curious, you've really been putting in the work over the last year or so with your spirituality and, connecting with nature and kind of taking a step back to look at that bigger picture. And I'm curious, how do you feel like that has helped you in this process? Like, what would Ben Hale be doing 5 years ago, being furloughed at home, as opposed to Ben Hale now with his family being furloughed at home?
Well, I don't know. That I haven't really thought about it from that perspective, to be honest. You're putting me on the spot, Amanda.
Well, I think
I would
that
say just my gut response would be that I'm trying to just sense things a little better, like sensing uh, my kids' emotions or their disposition, and trying to approach it from their perspective. Um, and do it in a way where, again, thinking of from an energy standpoint, are they having positive energy flowing out of them, or negative energy, and how do we redirect some of that energy or into a healthier, constructive way if it's not helping us out, and likewise, what kind of energy are we putting out? So uh, my wife and I will sense each other kind of getting into a negative state or whatever, just a state of frustration that kind of spirals down, which is right now is a lot easier with if we know if we check into Facebook or the news updates or whatever, it's pretty easy to get on that negative spiral. And so for me, I've noticed that and checked out from that a little bit. So I I don't get on social media very often. I
Yeah.
don't get on the news very often. I feel like, if it's something's a big update, I'll hear about it eventually anyway. And that's really helped actually with just blocking some of that energy that might come into my behavior and into our house through that way. I think has been a big thing too.
Well, I think just really leaning into how the boys, the space that they need and keeping them busy and, really connecting as a family. And like you were saying with your 2-year-old being able to go outside and just kind of like leaning into you're a big kid, you can go outside, hang out with your big
Right. Yeah.
brothers. I think that's a big deal. And it allows them to have the sense of freedom and independence that, they're probably craving, and it may, in their minds, feel like they have lost or don't have. I know a lot of the kids here have been out of school for close to a month now, and they're going stir crazy. Like they hate
Yeah.
being at home, and I'm sure it's very, very difficult and very hard for a lot of these kids that are going through this. And here a lot of them are missing their prom. They're missing, some really big events in their life. They're going to miss graduation, and it's their senior year, and there's, some pretty big life events that they're missing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I could see where that could really be challenging. But I think that, one of the benefits of all the shows that we've done together is we've talked about the sense of connecting with nature and getting outside and looking to the messages that nature gives us, and how there is so much beauty and gratitude that we can have for this little blip, this moment of time that we're being granted to reconnect, really get to know our families again, and, get outside. And I mean, yes, it couldn't be a more perfect time, but this is hitting right at springtime when we can be getting outside
Right.
and seeing things bloom and really enjoy gardening, maybe. So,
Yeah.
like over the past weekend, I was thinking, well, I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to go anywhere near people. Like, you guys just do your thing. So I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start planting my seeds. It's a little bit early, but I was like, I could start planting lettuce. Like, I can start doing
Yeah.
that. And then it would hopefully I can harvest that in maybe 6 weeks, maybe. So, in years past, I would have been so busy and moving so frenetically, it may have been something that I would have put off. Like, I'll do that next weekend, or I can do that next weekend. Whereas now I'm like, I need to do that now so that I can eat.
Right. Exactly.
So big difference as opposed to, how I would typically do it. But it was really fun. I had such a different mindset going into it as opposed to thinking that, oh, I could just get it at the grocery store. It was like, no, I need to do this to sustain myself, and I need to do this to grow my own food and be able to take care of myself. And it was really great to just be able to go outside and play in the dirt and plant the seeds and like just really have I've never not had a deep connection with my garden and my plants, but I felt like it was like exponential this time around. Like
Yeah.
it was different this time around, right?
Yeah. It's more touching into your primal roots this time, right?
Without a doubt. I was like, I need this. I need to eat.
Yeah.
So, with you having easy living yards, and this is probably a new paradigm for you, and obviously this is unprecedented. We've never gone through anything like this before. So what are some things that you're telling your own audience and your own clients as far as, this is such a great time to get outside and really be taking advantage of the yard that you have? So what are some things that you've been telling people?
Right. Well, so it's kind of funny you asked that question in that way. So Easy Living Yards has been pretty quiet recently. And so I took a personal step back to kind of practice what I've been preaching and say, you know what, guys, I'm going to disconnect from the digital world for a little bit and spend time with my family and focus on growing my family, taking in those moments that are important. And it's so interesting that I started this kind of in early 2020, doing this, stepping back a little bit, slowing down a little bit. Um, and such an opportune time when you think about it in that regard. Who knew what was going to happen, starting in late December.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this has been such a wonderful opportunity, going back to now thinking in the context of the outdoors and gardening and my company, with Easy Living Yards. This is what I talk about, is what we do in our yard. it's the setting. If you think of our yard as a stage, right, a high school drama stage, that's what our yard is. It's the setting where life takes place, and we're the cast and the characters in our own life and our own show. And so what we do in that space is really impactful with what our life means to us. And so how you utilize your yard, whether it takes from you or gives back to you, is a personal choice. And so what I try to teach is that what we do in our yard should serve you, whether it's cutting the grass. How you cut the grass can be impactful, whether you schedule your life around mowing your lawn or vice versa. So right now, I don't know if it comes through on the audio, but two of my neighbors are cutting their grass right now in late March.
I can't hear it.
Okay. And so that's kind of a big point of difference is we choose to mow the lawn, something so simple, right? A chore, when it fits into our lifestyle. And so that's just one example. And so we've been likewise prepping our garden for our most epic garden year this year, hopefully. And that's another activity I didn't even point out is our kids they've been outside when I'm not out there trying to prep the garden as well. So, I kind of show them what to do, how to work on it. So we're adding basically decomposed wood chips and compost right now to our garden as kind of a top dressing. We built like a really tiny little raised bed in our garden this year. So it's kind of a new construction piece to our garden, and they love it. Kids love getting into the soil, getting interactive with the outdoors just as much as we do. And feeling like they can own it really is impactful to them too, is what I perceive as they work in that garden. So they feel like they're part of that garden. And last year, and pretty much every year so far in our garden, we've always started out with a lot, but I have a neglectful approach to my gardening practice. I'm definitely meant to be a perennial gardener, but and it shows through with our annual gardening. But when it comes to our annual gardening, we usually plant quite a bit. We have a lot of fun with it, but I don't always maintain it, the way it needs to be during the growing season as I start to focus on other projects. But when we get a green bean or a piece of lettuce, no matter how bitter it tastes in the middle of the summer, the kids love it. They love it. And so they'll go in there. Our 4-year-old Adam, he goes in there. This is last year. We had some tomatoes that grew, and basically all we got was the little cherry salad tomatoes was all we got out of the garden. We planted all sorts of varieties, but what we got yielding was the little tiny cherry tomatoes right at the entrance. And fortunately, it was the two plants that we named for our kids. Those were their tomato plants. They took care of those ones.
Wait,
and
what was that you did?
we,
Did you say named them?
I don't remember their names, but yes, they chose names for their tomato plants. They cared for them.
I love it.
And they were the two plants that yielded, and they loved it. So it was, they felt like it was something they did and something they took care of and something they reaped the benefit from. And so the reward they get from gardening is so amazing. And likewise, just with our general, we do a lot of other stuff about creating a space for habitat, right? That's another wonderful thing we can do this year. So we could do plant edible gardening. It's like, this is the year in my whole lifetime where it's been most needed, right? It's most apparent that, hey, we could be experiencing food shortages this year, right? It's potentially unlikely, but it's possible, right? And it's tangible this year. And so this year more than ever, I hope most people go back to the land, right? We did that in the 70s, apparently, right? That was before my time, just slightly. But this is a wonderful time to go out in your yard and to tear up some of that lawn, or put some compost on top of your lawn and plant some lettuce seeds, plant some plants. Do the easiest thing, the littlest thing you have the energy to do, but grow something that you can eat, and where your land can actually serve a purpose for you. That's what I think this year is wonderful.
This really, really reminds me of World War II when everybody was doing the victory gardens. Like,
Right.
This is such a time where something like that could really emerge. And I experienced it myself when I never ate tomatoes until I grew my own. And when I grew my own, I don't know that I really did like tomatoes, but it was because those damn things take so long to harvest. Like, you got to wait 3 months. And it's like, you work that hard and you nurture something that long, and it takes forever. And it's like when it finally comes to harvest, you are going to eat that damn thing. And there's so much love and joy and empowerment that goes into it. And farmers would probably hear something like this and go, that's absolutely crazy. But we've gotten so disconnected from our food sources and how things grow. And we don't realize that avocado had to drive 3,000 miles to get to us. Or I see some of the tomatoes and stuff coming down from Ecuador and all these crazy places, and it's like there's definitely a difference when you take the time to grow it yourself. And since all of these families are stuck at home, and a lot of families do have, a good amount of front yard or backyard, this would be a great time to, they've got the internet, they've got YouTube to,
Right.
start watching videos. And, nature is such an amazing, beautiful thing. I remember when I grew my first garden, I had no idea what I was doing. And I am the worst person at directions. Like, I am not the type of person that sits down and researches and puts on, like, I'm just going to figure it out because I'm far too impatient. And that's what I did. I mean, it took me a lot longer. I would have been faster if I'd gone on YouTube. But I literally would just say, okay, I want to try this and I want to figure it out. And so, like, I tried strawberries, and I think I got maybe a yield of one set of strawberries. And I was like, okay, that was way too much work. And, it's been a lot of trial and error for about 10 years. And I have figured out what I'm good at and what I'm not. And what's really fun is getting to know, like you were talking about the bitter lettuce. I've had lettuce where, when I've really cared for it, really nurtured it and taken care of the soil, how the lettuce is delicious. Whereas when you get neglectful, it gets sour and bitter and it doesn't taste as good, but you're still willing to eat it because you've nurtured it and you're the one that grew it, as opposed to the grocery store. So to me, this seems like a fantastic time, since so many people are stuck at home, their families are climbing the walls, to really get your kids involved with maybe a raised garden or even herbs. We've talked about herbs before. Basil grows like crazy and is super easy to grow, and so is rosemary. So
Right,
two things
right.
that, are delicious, but can easily grow. And I think lettuce is actually pretty darn easy to grow as well. So, and, you know, I think what's really great is that by being able to do it, it makes you empowered to think, wow, I could actually do some practices where I'm not so reliant on outside sources to bring me my own food source. So I think that with all these people that do have yards and have, I live in an apartment, so I have a very small space that I can grow on, and I still grow quite a bit. So for those who have half acres, you can really take advantage and grow a lot of stuff and really be able to harvest a lot and experiment, and get the family involved. And I think it could be quite fun. And like you could even do chickens,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
which I think
you
would be
don't you don't
fabulous.
need a half acre for chickens. You need maybe a tenth of an acre. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, even something like that you could experiment with, that's a food source. And, I think it would be great to be able to go out every morning and grab some eggs and, be able to grow a lot of your own vegetables and foods, and then learn the process of canning so that you can, prolong that food through winter. So it's kind of like this stepping stone into teaching us like how our ancestors lived and how we were reminded of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I guess if I had any recommendations, so one, my personal recommendation for my own brand for Easy Living Yards is that I'm going to focus more this year on growing your own food and preserving and stuff like that too. Homesteading, basically, right? That's a good summary of that basic
Mhm.
area of food support
Yeah, I have a
and
really great
sustenance.
book on that. I don't think I have it in here. Oh, I do. It's called Back to Basics.
Okay.
This one is really good.
Okay, I don't know that one.
It's all about homesteading and how to live off the land so that you're not reliant on your government. And I don't want to take this one down because it's really big, but
I see it.
country
Country
living,
living.
the encyclopedia of country living. Oh my God. Like,
Okay.
you take that sucker out in the middle of 100, 300 acres of land, you're good.
You're set.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to share some other resources. Those I'll have to keep those in mind to check
Yeah,
them out.
this one's really good. Has a lot of good info in it, and I actually learned how to compost because of that book. I don't
Okay.
really do it that much, but canning
Okay.
and all of that stuff is. It's called Back to Basics: Complete Guide to Traditional Skills. How to work land, generate your own energy, raise livestock, enjoy harvest, basic household skills and crafts, and more.
Oh wow. That
Yeah.
sounds interesting. I've read a lot of books like that and watched a lot of YouTube videos like that. So
Well,
it
when
sounds
I
like it's
bought
up my
that
alley.
book, there was no YouTube.
Okay.
So I'm just dating myself a bit.
A
I've
little bit.
probably had that sucker 20 years.
Okay, it's a good book then.
Yeah, this is pre-YouTube. Let me see when the date of
Well,
this is.
like you said, that means that really the opportunity is so easy right now. If you're having trouble with something, you just Google it or go on YouTube and watch a video. And so, as far as the bare minimum basics, whether you have a an apartment with a tiny little piece of patch of grass or a balcony or something, you can still do something there, and there's opportunities for that. So just search for it.
Windows.
Right, yeah, search for whatever you have, and you'll be surprised what you come up with. um, my general recommendations when people are starting to get into gardening, and I've broken a lot of these recommendations and learned the hard way, start small is one. Start with what you want to try most.
Basil.
Yeah. or what's the easiest. And the great thing, if you're looking for nutrition, right, herbs are a wonderful way, because herbs are wonderful accumulators of nutrients that you can really jazz up a very simple meal with, or a simple salad. So that's a wonderful way. We've talked in a couple of our previous
Mm-hmm.
interviews about a lot of herbs. So that's a wonderful way to start. You talked about greens. Salad greens are super easy to start with too. And if you fail with them, you just start right over again because they grow so fast.
They grow fast. Yeah.
Right. And so that's a wonderful thing. But again, yeah, start small, both with the number of plants you choose to do, the number of species, as well as the size of your space. So even if you have a half of an acre, start with just a tiny little patch, or start with a pot if you're really feeling intimidated, and then go from there. I know all of us want to grow all of our own food this year. And I love that idea. And let's use that energy to do something positive. But let's also start with what we're capable of, because the reality is we'll fail a lot. And so if you start small and fail small and learn big, we'll make more progress. And so that's one recommendation. The other is, yeah, learn a few preservation methods, whether it's freezing, drying, canning, whatever it is. Learn at least one of them, or cooking. Right, that's a wonderful preservation or consumption method as well. Um, so choose one of those options to go with as well. As far as resources go, a lot of what I teach at Easy Living Yards is more general about landscape design. But I also have a few edible landscaping blog posts and that sort of thing, which I can share with you, Amanda, to put in the show notes if you want. I think actually I have our home energy design. I think it's easylivingyards.com/home energy design. So I'll update that with a few more links to the edible stuff.
Okay.
But also, there's a couple other wonderful people you could follow. One is my friend Amy Stross over at 10th Acre Farm. And so she just moved away from her 10th acre property, where she and her husband supported a massive amount of their caloric needs off of this tiny little property, and did it in a beautiful way where her neighbors loved it. So it's, first off, they started, ripping up their lawn and planting some plants and stuff, and they were looking sideways at them, but they fulfilled a ton of their caloric and medicinal needs. So they were into herbal medicine as well, and did a bunch of it in such a beautiful way that their neighbors loved it. They would come enjoy the harvest with them. And so she
Wow.
shares all of that over at her site at 10thacrefarm.com. And she also has a book called The Suburban Micro Farm. It's a wonderful book, so I highly recommend that book. Another guy I recommend, so Amy's a wonderful resource for small properties. If you have no land or no soil to work on, a great resource is Kevin Espiritu. He's got a podcast called the Epic Gardening Podcast. He's out of San Diego, but a lot of what he teaches are general principles that could be applied anywhere. And so he does everything from hydroponic gardening to raised bed gardening to gardening in pots. How to make he has a wonderful YouTube video on how to make a self-watering planter that I always recommend to my friends, because you can basically take a 5-gallon bucket and turn it into something where it waters itself, and you only fill it up maybe once every week or 2 weeks instead of every single day going and watering your plants there. So
Awesome.
those are a couple basic resources that I would recommend checking out if you're looking to just start in this gardening space.
Yeah, I think those are all fantastic tips, and I think that the main thing here is that there's a lot of really great resources. I think a lot of people are doing really great things with their time, and they're learning new ways to live with being sequestered at home. But I think a lot of people are wasting their lives away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've
And
read
these are
like
the right.
10 times I've read like people going, well, I haven't slept that late since I was in college. And I'm like, oh no.
I mean, I guess in a way it's good to get some energy back, right? A lot of people are lacking in energy, and we've tried to think about ways, yeah, as long as the time is useful, right? And that's what we have this time right now, this opportunity. Let's use it as an opportunity. And so I
Yeah.
agree with that. And um
And I'm all
yeah.
for, sleeping in, having naps, all those things, like you said, as long as you're utilizing the time. And so, if you're wasting your days away on TV and, snacking, and I saw this funny meme the other day, like this woman, she put this up and she's like, 7 a.m. coffee and snack, 8:15 anxiety snack, 10:15 get through the day snack, 12 o'clock lunchtime, and like she's going through it. All she's doing is eating her way through the day.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
So
I guess what I could say too is, where's the anxiety hike, right? Or the anxiety weed pulling exercise, or anxiety watering trip out to your garden, right? And so those are wonderful coping mechanisms that I don't always follow myself, but I try to, I aspire to. And it's every time I go hiking, it's very rarely that I pass somebody within 6 feet for an extended period of time. So as far as I know, all of the local parks meet the 6 foot distancing
yeah,
standards recommended
yeah.
by our health officials. And so go out to the parks, enjoy your space, enjoy the nature. This is a wonderful time for that.
And what's really great, I've noticed since I've been on the trails around my own house, is that because things have gotten so quiet and there's not as much people in traffic out and about, more animals are coming out. So I feel like a kid in Disneyland. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, the other day I was walking and I saw a deer, I saw a fox, and then I saw a woodpecker. Like I was walking and there was like a tree like right here, and he flew in front of me, and I was like, oh my God. Like it's like my dream come true. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like Disneyland for me, because it's so amazing. And just to be able to really bask in it and enjoy it and experience it, because, they're probably used to and absorbing our frenetic nature as well. So they're inundated with all that chaos of us driving around and being out and
Right.
about and horns and all of that. And it's quite settled right now. So they're probably in a frenzy as well. Like, oh my God, where'd all the people go? Like what's going
That's
on?
really, I've not paid attention to that. So I'm going to have to keep my eyes and ears open to that.
Oh my God, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of stuff that I haven't, unless I really go out into the wilderness. But, I live in the city, so I have a lot of amazing trails around me, but I don't see a lot of that every day. So I attract a lot more than the average person, I will say that. But it's just been, really fantastic to be able to see all this and experience it and to work with it. And I think that I think a lot of people are getting caught up in the fear and the anxiety because our comfort zones are really being torn up, and the uncertainty of, but what's going to happen, what's going to come out of this. And I think the best thing that we can really encourage people to do is stay present, just focus on the
Yeah.
right now. And I think one of the most medicinal things that you can do is garden.
Yeah.
because you can learn about it, you can get an understanding of how to do it, and it does become a coping mechanism because you dive into it and you throw some seeds in the ground and you're hoping for the best, but holy shit, when it starts to sprout and it like starts to grow, you're like, oh my god, I did that, like I participated in that. And that's the first part. When you actually get to the point to where you can harvest it and then you get to eat it, it's like, it's mind blowing and it's so simple, but
Yes, it is.
we've
Yeah.
gotten so disconnected from that. So it can become um, so much joy. And a lot of people haven't experienced that. And, I think a lot of people say, oh, I can't garden and I don't have a green thumb. And now's the perfect time to experiment and to start trying all that. And to get into it and experience that with your family, experience that with your kids, and get your kids involved, so that they can experience that joy too. And it to me, it helps a lot with anxiety. It helps a lot with worry because it focuses your mind and it gets you back to, Mama Earth. So
Right.
it's a
Right.
great way to do that. And I think, kids, I think the older ones are, but like your boys, they're probably not fully aware of what's going on. They just know that they're home from school, which is probably
Right.
awesome, right?
Well, yeah, for us it's a little different. We homeschool our boys, so it's like a continuation of normal, but they just know now that we can't go anywhere. They can't see our friends, they can't see our cousins, and that sort of thing. But yeah, for the ones that are just home from school, I would assume it's kind of in some ways like a vacation, in some ways kind of crazy too.
Yeah. Well, I hope that this has helped some people. I hope that it has encouraged some people to, maybe partake in a little bit of gardening. I always, I think every show we've been on, I've recommended basil just because um, basil was the first thing that I ever grew, and it was so easy. It sprouted quickly, and I was able to, I would say usually within 3 to 4 weeks you can start harvesting it and eating it, maybe a little bit sooner. But it's just really empowering to know that you can grow your own food. And so if you start off small, like Ben said, and kind of work your way up, you're going to fail forward, just enjoy the
Yeah,
process.
exactly.
um, know that that's going to happen, but take that energy that you have and the uncertainty and drive it into something quite positive and rewarding. It can be ultimately really rewarding for you and your family, and it's super fun. And
Right.
it's really exciting to, I mean, heck, you can start to grow something, and if you don't go outside and look at it for 3 days, I mean, you go out there and it's like this big, and then you go out 3 days later and it's like this big, and that's
It's
so
like magic.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the elves have been out there doing things. Well, I think
Yeah.
this was great. Ben, I want to thank you for saying yes to this and coming on kind of an impromptu, shooting the shit with me and helping humanity out with gardening and getting outside. I will definitely make sure that I link. We've done, I don't know, 2 or 3 podcasts now. I don't know how many we've
Yeah.
done. I'll be sure to link those below in the comments so that people can access those as well. But if people are interested in learning more about you or finding out about your podcast, how do they find you?
Yeah. So, well, first, thanks for having me back on again. I'm so honored every time, and I always have a wonderful time. So, thank you. I love nerding out about nature and all this energy space that I'm learning about as well. It's just fascinating. So, thank you. Yeah. So, I have a podcast called the Easy Living Yards podcast, and it's just gearing back up for 2020 right now. It's perfect timing, and so you can go check that out. Also, easylivingyards.com is the hub for all of the stuff we've got going on. So I have a membership there that helps you go through learning how to design your own yard, whether it's an edible landscape or a low maintenance landscape or a native landscape. That's what I focus on helping homeowners with. And then also I'll share with you, Amanda, that link I was talking about. I have a special page, easylivingyards.com/home energy design, where all the stuff we've talked about today I'll try and put in there, so that way it's easy to access.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed this show. We kind of did an impromptu show today, just to help with the fear and anxiety and angst that everybody's experiencing. And I hope that each and every one of you go out and start a garden with your family, to find not only how rewarding it is, but how delicious it is too. Thanks,
Yes,
Ben.
exactly. Take care, Amanda. Thank you.